I'm not going to go over every article of evidence that was collected in this case. You've been very patient all week, and you've heard a lot of testimony, and you saw the laborious process that we go through to introduce evidence. And I just want to direct your attention to that locker, and there are a lot of things in there. And Mr. Halstead, really, he kind of has a point that not everything, every tiny piece of each piece of evidence was swabbed and analyzed. And there is a reason for that, and it's called resources. But I want you to keep in mind when you go back there to deliberate about the evidence that you do have. And I particularly want to talk about the notebook because, I think what Agent Lowe told you was that she examined the notebook and took swabs from the place most likely to leave touch DNA evidence. And that was the surface of the notebook, which is, I don't know if I would call it slick, but it's something that she, as an expert and as somebody who takes samples and knows where to look and how to look for DNA deposits, she picked the most likely place. And she found it. She found the defendant's DNA on the notebook. And, circumstantially, ladies and gentlemen, when you consider that notebook came from a backpack that was found in the room where his sister testified that he was staying on the Thanksgiving holiday, it makes sense that it's the defendant's notebook and the defendant's writing. I would also point out to you that inside that backpack were several books that you saw in Technician Sandlin published to you. And on the inside of those books was the defendant's name, Joel Guy. So the books that were in the backpack belonged to him. The notebook had his DNA on it. And the backpack was found in the room where he was staying. So you don't have to be, just an expert in logic to make the connections that the notebook is his. But I would also like for you to consider the writing itself in the notebook, and there are references in those writings, despite the fact that there's no handwriting expert here. And if we did have one, the defense would be saying that that's junk science and you can't prove it. But there are references in the notebook that indicate that the person who is writing this is the defendant. Why else would he say that his DNA would be found inside the house? I mean, logically, why would anybody other than the defendant write something like that in the notebook that has the defendant's DNA on the outside of it, in the notebook that's found in the defendant's backpack, along with other books that belong to the defendant? Throughout this writing, he makes references to things that only he would know about. His mother's insurance policy, the fact that he would be the beneficiary, the fact that he had done calculations to examine his parents' assets, his father's assets, his mother's assets, the language, all mine, I get the whole thing. I mean, who else other than the defendant would be writing these things in this notebook that has his DNA on it that was found in his backpack along with his books, the backpack being in the room where he stayed the weekend of these murders. So, and that's just with respect to the backpack. I would also point out that, his DNA is found on a number of other articles of evidence that Agent Lowe examined in places where, really, how could you come to the conclusion that anyone other than him is the killer? Why would his DNA be on all of the 6 gloves, all of them, that she examined? 6 gloves. She told you that she examined the stained side of the gloves, which indicates, blood, and the non-stained side, the inside, where the gloves have been taken off, the inside out. His DNA. Also, on some of the gloves, his mother's DNA, which indicates that he was wearing gloves and indicates that at some point his mother's blood got on at least one of these gloves. So, why? Why would he be wearing gloves? I mean, why would he be wearing gloves that were bloodstained? Why would he have boxes of gloves in the closet of the room where he was staying that weekend? Why would he have a box of gloves on top of his dresser? Why would there be a discarded glove in the floor of the room where he was staying? Think about it, and think about the fact that he noted in his notebook that he needed to wear gloves. That was something that he considered, wear gloves and socks, because he's very conscious in his writing that gloves and socks will cover up or prevent the deposit of DNA evidence. Now, the state doesn't know and can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt when he made that notebook. But circumstantial proof shows that it happened before the murders, and that it happened as early as November the 7th of 2016. And you saw the video evidence. I'm not going to replay that, but we know that he went to several business locations, including the Ace Hardware store on November the 7th. And we know that that store was referenced on a note that was found inside the suitcase that was found in the floor of the room where he was staying on this Thanksgiving holiday weekend. Dan Boudreaux's Ace Hardware in Napoleonville, Louisiana. Okay? And we know that he went to a Lowe's in Gonzales, Louisiana, and made a purchase. And you can look at the videos yourself. And we know that he went to an Academy Sports and bought a knife, and that knife is the knife that was found on the bathroom counter of the guest bathroom that he used, according to his sister, Michelle Tyler. And we know that his DNA was found on that knife, along with, I believe, the DNA of, I think, his mother. So where else did he go in Louisiana? He went to a Home Depot, and he went to a Walmart, and you saw him purchase this tub, okay? And you know from Michelle Denison Tyler's testimony that she saw this tub, or these tubs, in his car on Thanksgiving weekend. So we know that he brought them up. And I submit to you that it's logical to assume that he had inside those tubs the chemicals that he had purchased in Louisiana. And I want you to think about, too, why would he bother to go to different stores in different locations? Why was he careful to purchase these items in areas outside of Baton Rouge? Baton Rouge isn't a huge town, but he could have bought all of these things in one place. These are the actions of somebody who is trying to avoid detection. He's trying not to call attention to himself. He doesn't want to purchase a huge amount of chemical products all at one time, because that looks weird, and a clerk might remember that. You might remember if you sell gallons of muriatic acid and food-grade hydrogen peroxide and sewer line cleaner to somebody, a young man, that might be something that sticks in your memory. But if you buy one or two things at a time, it's unlikely that a clerk will remember that. And I want you to think about, too, why he used cash. It's not that common. I mean, I never have cash in my pocket. It's kind of unusual that he would use cash in every transaction, and I submit to you that he did that to avoid detection, to make it harder for the police to track his actions, to be able to establish a pattern and a chain of where he went in the days preceding these homicides. Ladies and gentlemen, there is abundant DNA evidence at the scene showing that the defendant is connected to these homicides. Abundant. And it wasn't necessary for Agent Lowe to test and swab every surface of every piece of evidence that you witnessed us introducing this week. Now, I want you to consider, too, that maybe you can't see exactly the things on those videos that the defendant was purchasing, but think about what we did see at his parents' house. There were bags indicating the names of the stores where he had gone. Walmart bags, Home Depot bags and products, Lowe's bags and products. So again, circumstantially, all of this fits together to show that he purchased those products in and around the area where he lived, and he transported them to Knoxville, and he did so with the purpose of getting rid of the remains of his parents. And why did he want to do that? It's about money. And that sounds so terrible to think that you could kill your mother and your father for money, but that's really pretty much what it all boils down to. And that is evidenced also by his writing, by the notebook. Money, all mine. He had made calculations. He had thought about it. He spent some time. I mean, it's sort of a meticulous account of his intentions. And in a case where somebody is charged with premeditated murder, and I've tried many premeditated homicides, usually you have to put premeditation together circumstantially. And many times I have argued to a jury that you will have to put facts A, B, C, D, and E together to prove this element of premeditation. It's not like you'll have a notebook or an outline or a diary entry that's going to tell you every time. And how ironic that I finally got a case where I have that. That's exactly what we have. We have basically what amounts to a diary that outlines a plan of intention to kill. His apartment rent in advance. He talks to Michael McCracken about paying his rent in advance. Now, why do you think he did that? I was puzzled over this. I thought, why in the world would he be so quick to pay everything in advance? Why would you do that? You know why you would do that? Because it takes a while for an estate to be settled. It takes a while for an insurance company to make the decision to give you money. He needed a cushion. He needed about 3 or 4 months of his bills being paid while he waited to collect. Well, he waited to collect on his mother's insurance. So that's why those things were paid in advance, and that's why he did it in a hurry. He did it during the course and commission of these homicides. Outgoing, friendly, and happy. Yeah, I bet he was. But he felt very outgoing and friendly and happy. Michelle Tyler told you that that was unusual. Okay, his demeanor on Thanksgiving was strange. He was usually distant. He was usually kept to himself. He didn't interact a lot with his family. He didn't have much of a relationship with his family. And there are reasons for that. And I think Mr. Stevens explored that with Mr. Guy's only friend, Michael McCracken. He lived away. He lived in Baton Rouge. He didn't live in Burgosville. He didn't live in Knoxville. He had no reason really to have close relations with people who were older than him and who lived in different places. Ladies and gentlemen, despite that, these were people who were close, a caring family, a loving family, and they all knew each other's business, and they all knew exactly what was going on. And they all knew about the plans that Joel and Lisa had to retire and to take a break from life, okay? And why would he be outgoing and happy when he had been distant from them in the past? Well, I submit to you it's because he was getting ready to get what he wanted, to implement his plan. He wanted to deflect attention from himself. He wanted to be nice. He was playing nice. In his mind, He's thinking, well, I'm going to not give them any reason to suspect me. I'm not going to act like I'm mad. I'm not going to show them I'm mad. I'm going to make an effort to talk to the grandsons, my nephews. I'm going to give away my toys. I'm going to give away my Beanie Babies. I'm going to speak to Michelle. I'm going to interact. You know, I'm going to make this a nice holiday for everyone. So when ultimately the bodies are discovered, people are going to reflect back, and they're going to be able to say, well, you know, Joel Michael was nice that weekend. He was in a good mood. He was okay. But it was an act. It was a show, and it was to deflect attention from himself. Because if he had acted angry, if he'd had an argument with his mother, if he'd had it out with mom and dad over the fact that they were going to cut him off, I mean, how would that look when their bodies turn up later, or maybe their bodies don't turn up because he actually carries out his entire plan and is able to flush them into the public waterway. Mr. Sanchez was right. He didn't finish, okay? At some point, he gave up. He ran out of steam. He ran out of energy. You heard Dr. Marks. It's hard. It's hard work to get rid of two human beings. It was hard to kill them. It wasn't easy. And it's much harder work to take them apart, to cut off their limbs, to transport them into whatever vessel you bring to dissolve them in. It's hard work to lug all those big, heavy products around, and especially when you're hurt, because it wasn't so easy to kill dear old Dad. Daddy put up a fight, and the defendant got injured, and he basically wimped out. He gave up. He wimped out and left. And you might find it curious to see that on those Vigilant Solutions records, he actually is traveling back toward Knoxville at some point. So was he coming back to finish the job? We will never know. That's something that the state can't prove. All we can prove is that he left shortly after midnight on the 28th and was back in Baton Rouge when he was arrested on November the 29th. We can't prove what happened between those times. Well, let's talk about how hard it was to kill Mom and Dad. I want you to think about the last moments that Joel Guy Sr. spent on this earth. He was attacked by his own son. He had to fight him off, and it was a fierce fight. You saw the evidence in that room. I don't have to show it to you again. You saw his hands, both of his hands. At some point, that man had his hands on the knife that his son was using to kill him. And he knew it was his son. He faced him. He was stabbed in the gut. He knew his attacker. Think about that. Think about that. Think about the blood in that room. Think about that corner. Think about the thrashing about. It's no surprise that the defendant was hurt. It's no surprise at all he was hurt in that struggle. And he must have been feeling some pain when he had to kill his poor mother. There she was at Walmart at 12:18. How tragic that your last moments on earth were at a Walmart, buying bacon and sausage and food to prepare a nice breakfast probably for your dear son who was home for one of his few visits. There she was, purchasing things to take care of her boy, getting him ice cream. Watching her put on her jacket because it was cold. It's very heartbreaking. Watching her push that buggy, knowing where she's going, thinking about her pulling up to the driveway, to that garage, the garage door that wouldn't open. We don't know why it wouldn't open. Most of us pull into our garage, and especially if the kitchen is next to it, most people don't bring their groceries in through the front door, do they? Don't you usually bring them in from the garage into the kitchen? But for some reason, she had to come through the front door. Did she have to knock at the door? I don't know. Was she able to get in? Probably. He probably took the doorknob and the realtor lock off after the fact. Okay, he had several hours to fiddle with the scene after he had killed his parents. But Lisa came home, and she lugged all of those bags of groceries in by herself, and she got them in, and something made her go upstairs. What was it? Did she hear the struggle between her son and her husband? Did she? Or did he call her? Did he tell her to come upstairs? Did he say, "Mother, I'm hurt"? We don't know. We'll never know. All we know is that when she got to the top of the stairs, there he was. And he had a knife. And he stabbed her. And she saw him. She was stabbed in the clavicle. She saw this boy, her only child. You heard the testimony about how much she loved him, how she worked only to support him. And he cut her up. He cut her up. And then he cut her clothes off her body. He cut off her jeans. He cut off her panties. He cut off her shirt. He cut off her bra. He took off her ring, and he left it in the floor. He cut off her head. He cut off his mother's head.